Okay, so we got Mark going to be sharing with us this morning. Thank you for taking care of the group meet.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for being here.
All right.
Let's sit over here.
So what's up, everybody? My name's Mark.
Hi, Mark.
It's nice to meet you guys.
Mark. Hi, Mark.
I think God is awesome. I think He's faithful, and He speaks to us. So sometimes when I'm here and I hear other people speaking, you know, you get the gears turning, and I get ideas for like, man, that sounds good. Like God just will speak messages to me sometimes. So last Saturday, I believe God shared something with me, and that's what I want to share today. And we were talking about character development, and I was thinking more in the realm of focus. Like God spoke to me like focus. So I wrote something out, and I was thinking about it, and it's like there's an attack or a battle for our attention these days.
Right.
Everything from the media, our phones, Facebook, social media is all in an attempt to gather our attention. That's like a commodity these days. Like everybody wants your attention. Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Stay on your phone. Stay on your phone. So it's like the average per week or per day usage on a phone is 3 hours. Like we're on our phones 3 hours a day, average. Sometimes 5, sometimes 6 when you're off. And that's like 21 hours a week minimum. That's a part-time job on your phone. Yeah, and then if it's more than that, you spend I could have had 2 jobs. I'll have to spend 40 hours on my phone this week. What did I do? And sometimes, I don't know, I clean pools for a living. I'm on the road a lot. In between stops, I'm usually on my phone. You know, I mean, I'm just like, I'm on the road. I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to fill up my time. Shouldn't be on your phone driving anyways, but there we are. Anyways, so there's a grass for our attention, and that's like the world. But in Romans 12:2, it's like don't be conformed to the ways of this world. Like that's what the world wants. Like be conformed, be a mindless, slave to the cell phone and this and that. But we're not supposed to be that as a Christian, as leaders in our community. It's like we can't do and be everything God's called us to be sitting on our phones. Like we're to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, by being close to God, reading things that are edifying and uplifting instead of.
Amen.
Yeah. So that is what he really spoke, that word focus. And I was thinking of a funny story. So I have a very clear memory of being a kid. And I was at my grandparents' house with my brother, and I have this memory of him holding me down in the front yard, and he had one of these. It's Pictionary time, but what is this?
My magnifying glass.
It's a magnifying glass.
A homemade magnifying glass.
Yeah, I made it myself.
Mark made
It doesn't
it.
work very good. He was holding me down. I was a little kid, and he had that beam pointed right on my head.
Really?
It was getting hot. I remember that, yeah.
Is he doing 9 to 12 now?
No, he's in the military.
He is doing that.
Yeah, he turned out all right. He
He's
learned.
going to do the terrorist right now.
No, he's doing good. So, it's part of focus. So it's like, this is like our life. Like when a magnifying glass is pointed, broadly, it can shed light on stuff.
Yeah.
But as we turn our focus, if we focus, we can create it to like a pinpoint, and we can create fire in our lives. Like we can shed light on stuff when we focus on things broadly. It's like, okay, yeah. But when we can turn our focus and and it can create fires and stuff. But there's times in our life when it's good to have a broad focus. I was thinking like in our early 20s, we don't know what we're about yet. We're learning. It's like, what do I want to do? I'm focused on this. I'm focused on that. I'm here. I'm there. I'm doing this. And that's okay. For me, that's what I was doing. I was trying different things. But I was also a little flaky, a little flighty. So I was like, oh, no big deal. I'm going to focus on this now. I'm like, oh, what's that over there? And I'm doing this and that. So over time, I had to learn to rein that in and kind of get a handle on this and be like, okay, I can't just be doing this, that, and the other. I have to bring it in And that's important building character. You know, when people are putting their trust in you and stuff, they have to be able to count on you. Like, I'm leaving you in charge of this thing. I need to believe that you're going to put the focus and the work in to get it done, so I don't have to worry about it. So, and I had to learn that over time. Let's see. Yep. All right. Also, our attention of focus. It's like God's given us all a magnifying glass of focus in our lives. Some may be bigger than others. I was thinking, let's see, what are some things that are important that we can focus on in our lives? What do y'all think?
Family.
Family. That's a good one. I like it. Family.
God.
Family. God.
Job.
Job, very important. Job. Hobbies. Right? Finances. I can't spell very good or right with a dry erase. Hobbies. Goals. All these things, right? What are things that take away from our focus? Yeah.
Facebook.
TV, Facebook, all that. Okay, right. The world, the pleasures of the world, maybe even finances in the wrong, entertainment,
Sports.
yeah. Hey, and these things aren't necessarily bad. Entertainment. Sure.
That works.
Yeah, good enough. I'm not. Alright, so this is like the things that we can focus on in our life, okay? And like I said, we're only, God's given us abilities and talents and a magnifying glass of focus. Some people may be bigger than others, some people smaller. So it's like, okay, you can focus on your goals, your hobbies, and maybe you can focus on a few things at a time, but if you take that, you can focus on more, maybe you can see, but it's going to be kind of blurry. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this, that, but I'm not doing any of it very good. I can't see super clear. But as you bring in your focus, like, family, God, job, and it's like, we can only do so much. We all have a capacity for what God's given us. Like, if I'm trying to do all this is going to be hard with this and that. Like, I can tell when I get home from work and after we have dinner, me and my wife hang out and stuff, there's a time where I'm like, okay, go upstairs. I need me time, And that may be fine and good unless she doesn't want to, because she wants to have family time. That is important, and I agree with her, but there's an internal fight within myself because my attention, I want to focus on myself, my desires, my entertainment, because I just worked all day, I'm tired, we just had dinner, we hung out, we watched a show together, and now I want to be alone and watch my phone by myself, so, yeah, that doesn't work out well. It doesn't, so that is what I'm learning as a man right now and leading my family. Like, God has entrusted us to lead our families, ourselves, and it's like, if I can't lead myself, I'm going to lead my wife, my business, like, we need God and His help to help direct us. Like, as I have tried to take control of my focus in my life, if I'm doing it apart from God, I get all wacky and wonky and in the woods, and I'm over here just like, oh, yeah. And God has to be like, hey, over here, son, all this stuff, like, and whatever we focus on, it gets magnified. So it's like, when we focus on the good things, you see the fruit of that. It's like, oh, this is good, this is what I need, this is what I want. And then when you're focusing on this stuff, yeah, it may feel good in the moment, but you have that gnawing thought in the back of your head, like, I'm just not doing anything with my life. I'm down on myself. And then you have to go through the days like that, and it's just, I've been on both sides. I still am working on this side and how to combat and cope, because like it's a battle. There's a battle for our attention, our time. It's a valuable commodity. We cannot get it back. Once that time is gone, it's gone. Yeah, so if we check our search history or our phone history, it's like, man, I spent 40 hours on my phone this week. Like, what am I doing? It's scary, so it's something I know we struggle with as men. And, just that important focus. Yeah, so I believe that our life, it demands focus. Like, we cannot do and be all the things that God has called us to do unless we take the time to focus on what He has for us. Yep. All right, that's it.
Thank you, Mark.
That's a good word, Mark. That was God. I didn't come up with that. That was all.
You came up with the magnifying glass.
Yeah. Focus. Yeah. Yeah. I just tried to do what He gave me.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. My goal is, here with Kingdom Leaders, is we want to raise up godly, kingdom-minded husbands. We want to raise up godly, kingdom-minded fathers. And we want to raise up godly, kingdom-minded leaders, community leaders, leaders in our community. That means in our jobs, right? Anything that we do in our neighborhood, with our neighbors and so forth, like whatever, however we put ourselves into our communities, and whatever that may be, we want to be a representation of the light of Christ. Not doomsday, not darkness, not, right? And so, Mark, you sharing that gives us a great perspective of the most importance,
Yep.
right? Our God, our King, our family, and the way that we support our families. Those really are the key focuses of life. All this other stuff, in the end, it really doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't. So there's information over there. TV is information. There's entertainment. That's just to detach ourselves from life. Entertainment was designed to distract us from problems that come from work. Sports were designed as a distraction of life. They're not bad. They're enjoyable. To your point, when I got married, I realized that I really couldn't sit and watch football all day long. I had to give up ESPN. I had to give up actually calling myself, like, I'm a football fanatic. And I gave that up 21 years ago when my twins were born. I literally did. It's wild. But I defined myself as a football player. I am a all-star middle linebacker. I am a football player. That is what I am. And I promise you but I had to give that up. Because I chose, like Mark said, I realized that, you know what? If I want to have this beautiful vision for my life with a family, I need to then put all my efforts and time into building and establishing my family. So it's very, very powerful. And that's a message that will ring true every day of the year. Where are we choosing to spend our time and put our time? So today, I want to talk to us about Jacob. Who here knows who Jacob is? Jacob. And Jacob is known as one of the early founders of our faith. He's one of the forefathers of the faith of Israel. Jacob's name became Israel. Israel, you know that place, the geographical place in the Middle East, is named after who? This man. God renamed him after he wrestled with him. He would not let go of him. As he was about to go face his brother, Esau, he would not let go of him unless he knew that God would bless him. And so the name comes from Israel, the name comes from he who wrestles with God and prevails. Life is a challenge. It's designed to be challenging, but it's never designed to live life outside of relationship with the Creator. Never designed. Our life is never designed to be living outside of relationship with Yahweh, the great I Am, our Creator. Never. And so Jacob, he was set apart from God from birth to be a leader. He spent time being instructed in the covenants that, this is going to go way back, he was instructed in the covenants that Enoch passed to his son, Noah. Noah on the ark? Yeah, he had a dad. Right? It's not a fictitious story made up by Disney. right? It's actually the history of mankind is legitimate and true, regardless of what evolutionists say. We actually know there's a truth, regardless of their made-up Disney story. Okay, because it takes a lot more faith to believe in evolution than it does the history of man. There's a beginning and there is an end. And Enoch begot Noah, but Enoch was a prophet pre-flood. He was the prophet. And he received downloads from God directly. And in that, he passed that to Noah. And Noah, by faith, built what? The ark. Noah then passed down the covenant to Seth. Noah had 3 sons. Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So it's not Ham. It's Japheth. Oh, come on. Who's going to help me out here? Shem. Thank you. Shem. It was the other one.
And Shem and Jacob.
Shem. Abraham, think about it like this. If you guys look at a map, it's really important to look at a map, a timeline map. Noah was alive. Abraham was alive when Noah was alive. Abraham spent times in the tents of Noah and Shem. He dwelt in the tents of Shem, the covenant keepers. Right? And Abraham then passed this information, this knowledge, the book of covenant. He passed it from Noah to Shem to Abraham, and from Abraham to his son Isaac. Isaac has 2 sons. Who were the 2 sons? Jacob and Esau, the twins. Okay? The reason why I say all this is because what is most important to us, guys? Family. We're part of a family line. And if we don't respect that from the beginning, if we don't respect the history of man, how will you ever really truly respect your own history, your own family? The importance, the significance of it. We're talking about people from hundreds of generations ago. You know, there's only been about 700 generations from Adam and Eve. You'd think it'd be thousands. Nope, it's really not. It's hundreds. That's how far removed we are. But when you put it in that story, it's actually not that far, is it? Right? So, Jacob is a part of a family history of where our God, Yahweh, gave his covenant to Noah. He trusted Noah to carry it forward into the new world. Okay? Shem was trusted to carry it forward. Abraham was trusted to carry it forward. Isaac was trusted to carry it forward. And then Jacob was trusted. God told Rebekah that her son, the younger son, would serve the older son. That was the promise. Now, Jacob dwelt in the tents with his father. What do you think he was doing in the tents with his father? He was learning. What was he learning? The covenants. He was learning the ways of God from the beginning. That was the ultimate, the most important thing. From Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. In extra readings, there's extra readings, like there's a book of Enoch. Okay? There's extra readings. There's a book of Noah. Noah actually wrote books. The book of Enoch is referenced by Jude, one of the brothers of Jesus in the New Testament. So they had extra writings that kind of complement and add themselves to the book of Genesis. They help understand. So I'm saying all of this to understand a very important thing. Jacob was called to be the leader. Esau, what did he do? He spent all of his time doing what? Hunting, killing. Right? Is that a bad thing?
He's a provider.
He was a provider. His dad enjoyed the meat. But he was not called to be the one who carries the covenant forward. In other words, Jacob had a great promise over him. He had a very, very important thing that was going to take place in his life. But what he also had was a lot of fear. And that's what I want to share today. He had a lot of fear over God's plan for his life. Well, James, what are you talking about? Well, let's go to that place and I'll share it with you. Genesis chapter 27, verse 12. I'm going to read this quickly. 27, verse 12. Because I want to propose to us today that God has a plan for our lives. But we literally can mess it up by trying to control it. Trying to control every aspect out of fear that God may not fulfill what he said he would do for us. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? God has a plan, he has a hope, and he has a future. He has a very important thing for each one of us to fulfill in our lives. It's very important to download that information. We're going to be downloading stuff on our phones. We should download that very early on. It's very important. Is to understand, first and foremost, who our Creator is, and number two, how do we fit into his plan? We are part of his family. When through Christ, we enter into his family. By faith, it's a whole faith element. It's all by faith that we enter into God's family. Through Jesus Christ. I say that, once we understand that, then we understand the download of what God's plan and purpose is for our lives. We say, well, I'm a provider. Well, you're much more than a provider. Well, I'm a dad. You're much more than a dad. Well, I'm a husband. I'm much more than a husband. I'm a leader in my church. You're much more than a leader in your church. All of that is equal and important. But once you understand what your purpose and plan is in life, just like Jacob had a purpose and plan to carry the covenant of God forward, so that what? The whole world would know who Yahweh is. It was the whole world. It wasn't just his kids. The whole world. We are part of that. How many generations later? We are part of that. We are part of the blessing. That's why we're sitting here today. We are part of the blessing that Jacob carried through because of the covenants that he understood. But he was afraid that he would not be able to, somehow God's plan wouldn't happen. There, it comes down to the blessing. Genesis 27, verse 12. And he says here, this is just before Isaac's about to die. And he says, now when Isaac was old and his eyes were very weak, verse 1, he could no longer see. He called his son Esau, called for Esau, his older son, and said to him, my son, here I am, he answered. Isaac said, now I'm an old man, I don't know the day of my death. Now go get your equipment, your quiver and your bow, and go out in the open country and hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like, and bring it to me to eat, so I may give you my blessing before I die. Now, the blessing, it's very important. The blessing was passing down the leadership, the hierarchy, passing down the covenant, the books of the covenant to carry the blessing forward so that God's message would not be lost. And he wanted to give it to Esau. God did not say Esau would be the one who carries it forward. Who would be the one that carried it forward? It would be Jacob. You see, so Isaac wasn't really snapping to the reality here. Rebekah and Isaac did not have good communication. They did not communicate very well. Because Rebekah was told when she had the twins inside of her, hey, the younger one, he's going to be the one who carries it forward. But Isaac was like, I'm going to give the blessing to the older. Does this make sense? So this whole thing right here is how we say Jacob, the deceiver. This right here. Because it is fear that God's word would not come to pass unless somehow he had to manipulate it to happen. So for us, we have to be careful not to try to manipulate God's plan over our life. Trust him. He'll do it. And if he won't do it, he's a liar. What does God's word say? I am not a man that I should lie. Is it in the book of Malachi, maybe? God says he is not a man that he should lie. So Rebekah was listening to Isaac speak to her son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to go hunt the game to bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me some food, prepare it, tasty food to eat, that I may give you the blessing in the presence of Yahweh before I die. Rebekah says, now my son, listen carefully, do what I tell you, go to the flock and bring me back two choice young goats, that I may prepare some tasty food for your father, just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father and eat, that he may give you the blessing before he dies. Jacob says to his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I am smooth-skinned. What if my father touches me, and I appear to be tricking him, would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing? His mother said, my son, let the curse fall on me. Just do it as I say, and get them for me. Go get the food and get them for me. So then it goes through the monologue of, hey, Jacob says to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn son. He lies. I have done as you told me. Another lie. Please sit up, taste the food, and give me your blessing. Isaac says, how did you find this food so quickly, my son? Lord God gave me success. Another lie. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near so I can touch you and see if you really are my son Esau. Isaac knew this was not Esau. He's like, wait a minute, you don't sound like him. You don't feel like him. This happened too quickly. I'm blind and almost deaf, and I'm like I'm in senile mode, right? His spirit was telling him he's being tricked. Do you see the whole lack of trust on everybody's part here? It truly didn't have to play out this way. Man gets in, he gets in his fear. He gets in his fear. Now Jacob believed that he was going to carry the covenant forward. He believed he had that promise. But he was so afraid that he messed it all up, man. And he ran for a good chunk of his adult life in fear from his brother and the shame of trickery of his father, just to get God's promise fulfilled. Do you think God really wanted him to trick him and deceive him and lie to him? No, not at all. But that's what man did. That's what he did. So, it does. It starts with the father and the mother. As men, we need to have solid communication. That's one of the best, greatest things we can give to our children, to our wives, to our family, is that we are good communicators. That we're good communicators. And if we have fear or distrust about it, say it. You know what? I'm a little fearful. I'm a little nervous. I don't know if this is really going to work out. Rather do that than lie and try to conspire just to fulfill the promise. This promise ain't going to feel very good, is it? And it didn't for him. He lost everything. He didn't see his mother, his father, and his brother for how many years? At least 14 to 18, almost 20 years. Lived in fear that his brother's going to come and cut his head off. And his brother nearly did when he left Laban. But the angel of the Lord stopped Esau before he came back to slaughter his brother with. How many welcoming guests did his brother Esau have? 400 armed soldiers to welcome his brother as he was coming back into the promised land. Isn't that wild? But the hand of God stopped Esau. Why? So that the promises, the covenant, could be fulfilled and carried on to the rest of the earth. Here we are, guys. We're part of Israel. We are part of that blessing. We are grafted in. We are part of the blessing of Israel, the 12 tribes. That's where Jesus came from. Right? After running for most of his life and trying to control his circumstance, Jacob finally let go and listened to God. He traveled to Egypt and spent his final days there. What can we learn from Jacob's journey? Lordship precedes godly leadership. Lordship. Lordship means we have to trust who our master is. If you don't know who your master is today, this is a good message. If you truly believe, if I truly believe I am my own master, I am doomed to fail continually and continually. I will fail. Because in the end, I am just a steward of my life. I am not the master of my life. And if I aim to control every aspect in fear, it actually will come crumbling down. So what do we learn? That godly leadership, that lordship precedes godly leadership. You cannot be what God intends you to be and hold on to who you think you should be at the same time. Let me repeat that. You cannot be what God intends you to be. For Jacob, he intended Jacob to be the bearer of the covenant, to bring forth the covenant to his 12 tribes, to the 12 sons, right? To the children. While you try to hold on to who you think you should be at the same time. That was Jacob's mistake for most of his life. If you want to walk with God, we must give God first place in our life. His throne is not a duplex. Who knows what a duplex is?
2 units?
Yep, it's 2 unit. God's throne is not a double pot. It's not a double seat. It's not a seat where I sit on the throne and I tell God to move over. Make room so I can sit down next to you so I can lead my life. That is how most men lead their lives. Even Christian men. Okay? Now, worldly men, God's not in the picture. They are Lord and Master. They are King on the throne of their life. So every one of us should picture a throne, literally, like a vertical throne sitting on our chest. And the question is, who resides there? Who sits there? Who's in control? Are we in control? And fear and anxiety and worry and conspire to try to get ourselves ahead in competition of the next guy, cut down anybody we can just so we can get ahead because of, well, if I don't get ahead, the other guy's going to get ahead and I'm not going to have, and he's going to have. He'll have more than me. Oh my goodness, and I won't have anything. If that guy does better than me, I'll have less. What a worldly perspective. Most people, they understood really wealth creates more wealth. If you all started doing really, really well financially and we all know each other, guess what happens? And we do business with each other, guess what happens? All of our wealth rises. Because wealth creates more wealth. Does this make sense? The worldly mind says what? If he's doing extremely well, I'm losing somehow. We got to take him down so I can gain. Do you get it? That's the world. That is not godly thinking. That is not kingdom thinking. That's not biblical. The throne room, the throne, he sits on the throne. He is in charge. Even with the promises, even with the what he's told us he's going to do in our lives, we have to trust that he's actually going to do it. So if you're having a bad year this year, you're having a bad month, and we start to question everything, I didn't do well at my grades, whatever it is. Sales are down, oh my goodness. God, you told me that we were going to do really, really well, and this place looks like it's going to go bankrupt. Believe. Faith. God, in the end, you're in control, and I'm so thankful you're in control, not me. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be diligent. I'm going to put my time in where my time, this is great illustration, by the way. I'm going to put my time in where my time needs to be, and I'm going to dance over here a little bit, so I feel like I still have my own, me time. But you know what? Me time doesn't produce a lot of, it can give solstice, and it can give refreshment, and it can water the soul. But as leaders, we need that. But we can get lost in that. We can get totally lost in that. This is where we need to be sowing, because when we sow here, so when we water this, it automatically does this. When we water this. So as we're putting into these bank accounts, it automatically makes me feel refreshed. It automatically makes me feel purposeful. It automatically makes me feel like, man, I'm on top again. It's very, very powerful. When we take care of what's the most important, our relationship with our God, relationship with our family, and the relationship with what I do of how I serve people. Because job really should say my service. How do I serve mankind? How do I serve my neighbor? What service do you provide? It doesn't have to be like a charity thing. That you can do that, and that's also beautiful. But the service that you provide is how you serve mankind. And yes, you get paid for it, and you're a paid servant. That's a biblical thing, by the way. Right? People who take control of their lives live far beneath their privileges. It's clear from before Jacob was born that he would be a leader of significance. God had a plan for him, but yet Jacob lived as though his future was uncertain. He just wasn't certain what was going to happen. When he heard his brother was coming, he divided his family all up. He sent them in 4 different ways. And he kept only one of them with him when he was going to pass. He literally thought it was all over. God's plan was going to come to nothing. Right? He was in fear. His whole life was in fear. Yahweh had spoken to Jacob his plans and purposes, his promises years earlier, but Jacob needed to walk in peace, that it would all work out without trying to force his way. Otherwise, it may not happen. It may not happen what God had promised that would happen. We can either walk in fear or we can walk in faith. We've talked about that previously. Believing that no matter what happens, everything's going to work out according to God's plans for my life. He occupied his time fighting for a future that already belonged to him. You guys really take some time, read Genesis. It starts at 22, 25, 26. It's a few chapters. You guys will really love his story. But he spent most of his life fighting for his future. But he didn't have to, because he had fear. Why? Because he screwed up in the beginning. He screwed up because he didn't believe that the blessing would still happen. Maybe Jacob would have had a dream. Maybe an angel of the Lord would have appeared and said, maybe Isaac would have had intervention. Maybe God would have intervened and said, whoa, Isaac, the blessing is going to not Esau. God doesn't show favorites. Well, he's the oldest. God doesn't do that. Throughout the Bible, we see that God doesn't show favorites. You see it? You understand what I'm saying? He could have intervened. The fear of his mother was what? Oh, God might not intervene. Hold on. Isaac doesn't hear from God anymore. He's old and blind. He doesn't hear from God, so we got to intervene. Do you get it? Do you see? God would have intervened, but I think they just took it in their own hands. They took care of it. They took care of business. Does this make sense, what we're talking about? Last point. We need to let go of our own agenda. Hand ourselves over to our God and give him full control. It's never too late for God to lead us to a better life, one that he has planned for us to live out. The question is, do we trust him? Do we trust him with our lives? This isn't a one-time occurrence. It's an activity working it out daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, reminding ourselves that we will not fear, but that we will trust our God with our life, the life of our children, the life of our wives, for those of us who are married, and the work and business that we hold. We need to invite our God to sit on the throne of our hearts and remove ourselves from the position of supreme ruler. And that's not a one-time occurrence. That is you know what? I'm not going to walk in fear today. You know what? I'm not going to walk in anxiety. I'm not going to walk in worry. God, you are going to take care of me today. And I don't need to force and manipulate. If something does not go my own way, I'm okay with it. Even if it's not just. I'm okay with it. We talked about Joseph last time we were here. Things did not go his way. But he was okay with it. He's a great example, an opposite example of his father. Joseph is the son of Jacob. Does this make sense? And Joseph is a great example of when things don't go his way, he rolled with it. What did he do? He walked in faith. He believed that everything would work out. Why? Because he had a promise from God. The dreams that he received. And Joseph, very important, I'll close on this. Joseph, not the oldest. Joseph is the one who spent his time where? As a boy. Where did Joseph spend his time? In the tents. What was he doing in the tents with his father? Learning the covenant. Who was the one who carried forth the covenant? Joseph. Not the oldest. Does this make sense? And so Joseph received the covenant to carry it forward. And Joseph was the deliverer of the whole family. Do you get it? And yet he endured suffering. He was the suffering servant. Some people relate him to Jesus. Joseph, the suffering servant. Jesus, the suffering servant. It's very, very powerful. So, when we break out now, I want you guys to take some time, maybe talk about with our table leaders. And I'm going to be one of the table leaders as well. We're going to break out in three tables. I'd like us to take some time to talk about the importance of supreme lordship. And what does that look like? How do we go through that process of removing ourselves from the throne, the chair of our heart, our life? How do we do that? And let's talk that out. Because today can be a new day for us to move into a new direction. Less fear, less anxiety, less worry, and more trusting that God will sort it out for us. We don't have to try to manipulate a situation. We can believe He has a good plan for our lives. Amen?
Amen.
We good?
Good.
All right, guys, let's break out. Thank you.